Thank you, Jim. Earl Blacky Zamzow, coach. Earl Zamzow was a dynamic figure that shaped the lives of the students and athletes of Whitefish Bay, both during and beyond his 24-year tenure as a biology teacher and coach. The strong character and integrity he displayed were molded through his own experiences in athletics as a Division III All-American in football at Ripon College and a top-place finisher in the AAU National Decathlon Championship in 1950. His willingness to serve others was not only evident in his commitment to Bay, but also in his 30-year active duty service for the U.S. Army Reserves, retiring as a colonel in 1989. In his time at Bay, Earl coached a variety of sports, including basketball, golf, gymnastics, and football. But his accomplishments as the head track and field coach were his most significant. During his 14 years at the helm of one of the most dominant high school track and field programs in the state, Coach Zamzow guided his athletes to excellence season after season. Under Coach Z's tutelage, the track program won 12 Suburban Conference championships. The success of his teams in the 70s put Whitefish Bay in elite company as they captured the 1970 state title and were runners-up in 72, 73, and 75. In recognition of his success and as a promoter of the sport, he was also inducted into the WIAA Track and Field Hall of Fame in 1995. Earl Zamzow recognized there was much more to life than just athletic prowess and competition. And while proud to have led his athletes to tremendous levels of achievement, he was most satisfied in how he positively shaped his student athletes into responsible, successful adult citizens. Accepting on his behalf are his sons Mark and Scott.
Thank you very much, Jason. And we're going to call an audible here. We're going to triple team this thing. Let's stay within our time limit. And I'm Mark, and I'm joined by my brother Scott, and this is his wife Meg. So we hope to give you a chance to kind of reminisce a little bit, certainly tell you more about our dad here, and have a good time, to be quite honest. And we are extremely honored to have our father inducted into the hall here. And there's extraordinary leaders, many of them sitting right here in this room that are part of that already. So they're in good company, all of these honorees today. I'm a 74 grad, so we got 74 guys here. Do we have any class symbol or anything? We do? No. 74. And Scott's a 79 grad, and there's lots of old track folks here and football folks. And thanks to the friends that did come out here, really from California, Colorado, Minnesota, Illinois, South Carolina. We've got a ton of folks here. Of course, a lot of the Bay folks and Milwaukee folks here. And I even have a cousin that came on down from here, Ripon, up in the Berlin area. So good stuff to have the Demons down here as well. This is an extraordinary setup you got here. I did see it when I visited once in a while, and so congratulations on the Bay team overall, and certainly the gang ahead of Jason here to get that thing going, and it's really is extraordinary. Before handing off to Meg here, I want to say that we're really proud of our accomplishments for my parents here. And this is going to be a team talk about my mom and my dad, because they were a team entirely during his tenure up here. My dad passed away at age 80 back in 2009, and my mom passed away just about a year prior to him. Had they been here today, they certainly would have been quite proud of all this that's going on, and humbled, certainly. In that regard, I know that both of them would also view our dad's induction as a team event for both of them. For those of you that knew them, they were a tremendous couple in life. We had a very loving family, and as you can imagine, we had a very disciplined family too. We occasionally felt the other end of that paddleboard, just like a lot of folks in that day. But it was that type of spirit that he wanted to make us better, and certainly the students and athletes better without the contact sport. And I think he lived up to that. I think he made an impact here. He left behind a ton of paperwork, so we've got a big volume of stuff here, and in going through that I found some notes that I'll read to you here. But one of the things he wrote down in his words, the three things that he valued most, in this order, were teacher, father, and husband, in that order. To put it another way, he wanted to be a servant to others, to athletes and students, his kids, and certainly his wife, to help them thrive and grow, as Jason talked about already. But even as my dad excelled in his service to others, he would be the very first to acknowledge that our mom was the foundation that allowed him to succeed and really go after those passions. Mom was the social one in their marriage, if you knew her. She knew everyone. She could talk to everyone. Everybody was her friend. And as her friends put it, one friend in particular, she called her a people whisperer, which is pretty darn good. So my high school friends, they obviously knew her, and she was the one that would always walk around with a yearbook every year and walk up to us and say, "Danny, why don't you date this girl? Her, date this girl. Mark, take her to prom," all this stuff. So it was a true family spirit there, and we enjoyed that. And my mom's energy and sociability were clearly huge factors to enable my dad to do his job. They were wonderful partners in that manner. With her in the background helping at meets and cheering with the parents, remembering names of everyone she encountered because she could, and my dad was admittedly never very good at that, he counted on her to help out quite a bit. So he was able to focus on his personal joys, certainly with her help, coaching, teaching, and mentoring. All right, handoff. Meg, you're on.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. I actually heard about Earl before I even met him. I lived in Minneapolis, Scott was living in Chicago, and we met at Summerfest. And I go back to Minneapolis, and one of the gals that worked in the office said, "So, did you have fun at Summerfest?" Well, who doesn't have fun at Summerfest? And she said, "Did you meet anybody interesting?" And I said, "Yeah, I did. This guy from Whitefish Bay." And she goes, "Whitefish Bay? As in Wisconsin?" I went, "Yeah." But I said, "He lives in Chicago." And she goes, "Okay, what year did he graduate?" And I said, "I don't know. I can tell you how old he is." She said, I told her his last name, his first name, last name, of course. And she goes, "His dad, I think, was my biology teacher." And was he a riot? He did this bee dance in front of the class. And she kind of imitated him. And I'm like, okay. And she said, and he always wore these crazy ties for every occasion, which says a lot about Earl, because he would wear patriotic ties, Valentine ties, Darwin, money ties, and I think you said his most favorite was the American Eagle tie, because he was very patriotic. And then lastly, the one thing he said to me a long time ago, which always stuck with me, and I told a couple of friends this, he and Earl were a very special couple, and they were dynamic because of each other. He said, "You know, Meg, what a definition of a good marriage is." And I said, "No, what is that?" He says, "When you both think you got the better deal." Next.
Hello, and like my brother, I dug out some of the old notes off the computer. Dad being a teacher, he always followed up and did everything with little reports and notes. And every track meet had little anecdotes on the back and Zamorisms of what you did this time, what you need to do the next time to win and compete and do better. I gave all of those to John Kern, so if anybody wants to follow up, he has the entire library. I guess just to do a little bit about my dad, from his notes here, It said, I am happiest when working hard to make tomorrow better for all concerned. So again, as Mark said, helping others. His observations: I enjoy physical or mental activity. I enjoy helping others and having my acknowledged efforts appreciated. And he carried everything through from a biology teacher. He read a lot. He probably read anywhere from 1 to 3 books per week, obviously more in the summer, but the books would have been history, evolution, scientist, investing, money, bestsellers. And in my parents' pastimes, they enjoyed art, traveling, community, and friends. One thing people always ask me, how was it like living with your dad? Wasn't he really strict? And I actually didn't see it that way. And the reason being is because behind the scenes, I got to see what he did for everybody involved. Every time parent-teacher conferences came around, he always dreaded those because he wanted everyone to succeed and do their best, and he'd help them do that in the future. But he'd always tell parents, I'm strict but fair. He wanted to teach everyone the building blocks of success. Going back to earlier, his teaching at West Allis, he had found that people didn't know how to balance a checkbook. So he taught students how to get the building blocks of life, starting with finances, and explaining that people are always happiest when they're busy and learning. So if you learn something and like a subject, and get into that for the rest of your life, you'll always be happy going to work. There were many teachers. He did pre-retirement planning. Teachers in the day could retire at 57, might have been earlier than that, but most did because he helped other teachers plan their finances so they could retire and enjoy the fruits of their labor. He taught me how to rebalance a portfolio. Teachers that had financial problems or were going through divorce, they'd come to the house separately, and he'd set them on a plan to get solvent again and go on with their lives. A couple of added notes here from his sheet entitled, I Love Teaching. Work hard today to make tomorrow better. A job worth doing well is a job worth doing well. And this one's from the Milwaukee Turners, which Mark and I were involved in with when we were kids. A sound mind is a sound body. The cornerstone of his philosophy, teamwork is key to success. He mentions many of the coaches that are here today. Again, a group effort that he couldn't have done it alone, and their expertise. Jeff Thilke was a great motivator, he says. Bob Sorgen, Mike Kerner was an excellent jump coach technician. So he used everybody's specialties. Mentions Dick Vandenhoven, who's on the wall for long distance. And his cornerstone to his philosophy was success in athletics and total fitness is based upon the ability to run, jump, and throw. A second cornerstone was the belief that there was a different sport for every season. We always had to be out for at least one sport per season, and if you just to try it and see what we liked. And he did that because he said that students shouldn't specialize too early because they wouldn't have the crystal ball to know what their body would be best suited for as they reach maturity. One thing Jason mentioned, Dad wasn't in the decathlon, and he actually beat Bob Mathias in one event. Dad being humble, nobody ever knew he was in the decathlon. That was in his private records. He based his life on his experiences to help others and not what he had done in the past. And my last comment here, just to show that my parents weren't really that strict, I was in 5th grade, and they took a station wagon load of us down to see Deep Purple and ELO Milwaukee Arena. So, was he strict? He was strict in his beliefs to help people achieve their goals. But if somebody was interested in a subject or a social event, they were all for it. So, strictness for an end purpose and end goal to achieve a good life and fulfillment and everything my brother mentioned. If I could. Now we're going to do the biology part. So, as you know, Dad was acutely aware that environment was key to development. So, who remembers the genetics versus environment conversations in class? So that was his theme. So think about that and how people grow. As we went through all the paperwork, we did find his acceptance speech when he got inducted into the Wisconsin Hall of Fame. So really, in the spirit of what this is about, I wanted to read some of those here. He started out first by talking about his environment growing up. Thank you, Dad, for giving me pride. Thank you, Mom, for stressing hard work today for a better tomorrow. He went on to talk about people in his life besides parents. Thank you, Bob Fensky, football coach, for practices that weren't fun so that the games were. Thank you, Carl Doling, for stressing a sound mind and a sound body. Thank you, Colonel Sims and mandatory ROTC, for providing leadership and patriotism. Thank you, Hawk, who was a dining hall dietitian, for teaching us there were things more important like punctuality, Thursday night dinners with ties and candlelight. Thank you, Bill Hollinger, who frequently felt poor performances more personally than his athletes. Thank you, Henry Meyer, who didn't realize there was a difference between physical education majors and pre-med students. And finally, thank you, Ripon College, for being the kind of school where a student may be an athlete and an athlete may become a student. So put that perspective in how he got shaped, his environment. And he went on to talk about, in this Hall of Fame induction, Nick Keel, big time name here, Chet Wangren, Florin Coquette, Coach Coquette that we had over at Cumberland. Here's some more quotes for you. He talked about my assistants, and I'm going to just hit up what Scott did again here. Richard Van Naven, enthusiastic distance coach. Mike Kerner, one of the best tacticians in the state for the jumps. Jeff Filkey, a great motivator for the hurdlers. And Bob Sargent, weight coach for the Suburban record holders. These coaches competed to see which events contributed the most to the overall team success. They all had their share in contributing the most. And with those names, he writes, there wasn't much left for me to do but be the overall administrator, athlete placement, and my fun came with the baton passing and the overall conditioning. Those of you that ran track, that was the philosophy of the work. It was the team, it was the greater good. And I think a lot of folks that had him took that away as well. And we've got some family treasures here, and found out just from talking to guys at the bar last night, we don't quite have all of them. So here's the clipboard, and I'm going to ask Jason if we can have access to the vault 2 floors down by the old swimming pool. And apparently, my dad, probably other coaches, there was boxes of paper down there back before we had computers. So if I can have access to those, I hope to digitize it, so anybody who wants old Zammer stuff, he wrote weekly reports after each meet, and if I can find those, I'll digitize it and send it to folks who sign up. So this will be up here for later on.
Yeah.
Found out from one of those sheets that he wrote, he did kind of an insight on himself here. So looking back, again, his words, my biggest pressure situation, being only the 3rd track coach at Whitefish Bay. He had big shoes to fill with his predecessors. Biggest accomplishments, again, he was very proud of being the co-champion for state and track in 70, 72, 73, and 75 runner-ups. Most satisfying state finish, 1973, where they were runner-up because they had 8 individuals participate in the scoring. Mile relay, won it. Taylor, Strawn, Dean, and John Kearns, who's here. 880, Fagerlund, Strawn, Barber, and Taylor. High jump, 3rd for Steph Miller. Pole vault, Pat Harper got 4th, and John Kearns won the quarter mile. Last one, biggest gamble at state, entering John Kearns and Bill Taylor in the individual quarter. They finished 1st and 4th. They had up the points. They got the runner-up that year. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, shortly before his death in 2009, he liked to write thoughts on life. And he compiled multiple letters and put them out to family and select former students and friends and athletes and faculty. In closing for this afternoon, here's the final quote. But this is from his letter called Thoughts on Turning 80, which is about 3 months prior to his death. And he was still happily at the computer, thumping away. So, with all the stuff we talked about already, collectively, I think teacher, father, husband, this is what he wrote in there. I don't know what, if any part, I played in the development of your lifestyle. But for me, the teaching of the subject matter and the coaching of athletic skills was secondary to my desire to act as a role model and perhaps as a mentor to my students in how to live life, to include married life, so that they would find success, happiness, and meaning to their life. He had the big picture, I think. And we were certainly blessed to have him in our loving family, and I think the school is lucky to have him too. Thanks for this honor and putting him on the web.